Now let's talk about the stored procedure. This is a part 2 of the stored procedure. Already I have actually done one video on the stored procedure. This is another one. Okay, let's go into the detail of what stored procedure is. Okay, now stored procedure is nothing but a SQL statement put together which can be actually executed together in the stored procedure. Actually, stored procedure is just like an envelope in which actually lot of multiple SQL statements are there, and it does allow you to actually handle a logic inside the stored procedure. Okay, which allows you for a lot of manipulation to be done, and you can write a transaction and actually commit a transaction and roll back transaction in the stored procedure. That's the one of the great part of the stored procedure. Now let's go and we'll come across what the other reasons are. Okay, firstly let's see what's the what the stored procedure. Firstly, remember that there is only 128 character length. As you can see, a stored procedure can have a 128 character length. Just imagine if you had that 128 character length, and if somebody wants to have to remember your name or 128 character length name, and before that person could actually talk to you, and he has to name you on the phone, and it would happen that the person has already forgotten what he wanted to say. But then Microsoft do provides a 128 character length, and that's good enough, I think so. Again, then let's go to the parameter. It has 2100 parameter. Why it has 2100 parameters? Only Microsoft can answer, because separated by commas. Okay, but there are lots and lots and lots of parameter to go. Okay, now you can have a parameter for the input. Okay, whenever a stored procedure is calling something, it actually, if you are using a parameter, you usually send the input parameter that will actually you would be providing a value in the input parameter, and the output parameter would be something you would be providing on the when you're calling the stored procedure, but actually you would be providing just a variable in the initial stage, and it will be returned to you. The value of the whatever you want would be inserted in the output parameter, and that would be returned to you. Okay, now there is an optional parameter. Optional parameter is nothing but one of the input parameter, but actually it has a default value. In the case whenever you are defining the stored procedure, remember always to whenever the parameters are required, wherever the parameters are required, put them initially, and whatever the parameters are optional, you should always put it in the end. Now let's go and see the other things. When you create a stored procedure, not only it actually allows you to compile the program. It will, what happens is when you create a stored procedure, it will compile it, okay, and it will keep it in the database somewhere. Now what happens is that it doesn't, next time if you want to use the same stored procedure, you need not have to actually recompile a stored procedure, because it has a compiled version of it, and it will execute the compiled version of it, which has also a maintenance plan. Now there are three options with the stored procedure when you are creating a stored procedure. That is both the recompile, okay, encryption, and execute as. Recompile means, if you create a stored procedure with the recompile, means whenever the stored procedure is created, it will not actually be saved as a precompiled, which means that any time you want to execute this stored procedure, it will always recompile, because you have created a stored procedure with the recompile option. This will actually decrease the performance of the SQL server, remember that thing. Then there is a stored procedure if you want to create with the option with the encryption. Now what happens is when you create a stored procedure with the encryption is that you will not be able to see the code of the stored procedure, whatever it is. It provides you the security, but at the cost that you should always remember where you should always have a hard copy, or you should have a copy of the stored procedure kept somewhere else. The thing is that it will not allow any other user to see the compiled work, see the stored procedure SQL statements inside what it is. Not only it doesn't allow the user, it does not allow yourself also to see the what is inside the stored procedure. That's what the encryption means. Then there is execute as. Now this is a very different option. It will allow you to allow somebody else or you to allow somebody else stored procedure with the permission that user has, or Maybe if you have created a stored procedure, it will allow somebody else to execute as the similar permission as you have. Now there is a what are the advantage of a stored procedure? Now what you can do is grant access. What happens is whenever you are actually creating a stored procedure is that you are putting the rather lot of SQL statement inside, which means they are accessing the tables. And what is happening is that you can grant the access to the table user or a database to the database user or database role to the stored procedure rather than allow them to access to the tables. What it means that you do, whenever you are actually using a select statement, you will always be granting the access permission to the tables rather than actually grant the access permission to the tables. You can actually directly grant the access permission to the stored procedure, and actually stored procedure will take care of the rest. And again, you can always allow the user to execute the stored procedure within the security permission as you want. Okay. Now this acts as a control layer, allowing to choose which columns and rows can be modified or which cannot be modified, because stored procedure is something which actually will do all the computation and everything inside the stored procedure. And what happens is that the user actually doesn't have allowed to all the columns, so it gives you actually very controlled layer that allows the columns and the rows that you want to actually put out to the user. As I already told, the compilation and execution plan is created and reused every time, provided that you have not created the stored procedure with the recompile option. Then you can create a temp stored procedure. This is rarely used, but remember that this is still available. If you create a stored procedure with a hash and with a prefix, then you are creating a local temp stored procedure. If you create with the double hash, then you are creating global temp stored procedure. Now let's move to the little bit to the different parts. Now whenever a stored procedure, whatever that SQL does, okay, now there are going to be times there are going to be errors. So the stored procedure allows you to raise an error. You raise an error, there can be a custom error, state code, and severity. Now what happens is, when you specify error message for the custom error, the error is assigned a default of 50,000 by the default in the most of the cases, and that is sufficient. Okay, in the most cases you would be having this 50,000 value. Okay, you just see it whenever we execute the SQL code for this thing, and you can see what is happening with the stored procedure. Now let's go to this thing, just information use. Okay, this is just information use. It allows you to use a value between 1 and 127. In the most cases you would be using only 1, and that's only required. Between the value of 1 and 10, it's just information as a result of the program execution. Okay, if the severity error, as you can see, is between 1 and 10, there would be the execution won't actually jump to the catch block. If it is between 11 and 19, it will lead to the execution to jump to the catch block. Between 20 and 25 is a severe fatal error. Now let's go and actually run one of the stored procedure that is actually exactly what it does. Okay, we'll go and start with one of the very stored procedure that actually I just explained to you all the things that contains. Now here it is. Okay, here is one of the stored procedure. It will actually, it uses a raise error, try and catch also. So this is a use pubs goes. Okay, now let's actually run it. I'm going to actually select the database. Pubs 2000 is pubs 2000 is same as actually pubs database, only I've renamed it. Now I'm going to check and run this statement of the transact SQL. Actually, if it has a user defined, I'm actually going to create a user stored procedure with the insert titles, and if it already has, it is going to drop that stored procedure from the pubs 2000, and I'm going to execute it. And as you can see, I have already executed the, and it must have dropped the if it was already existing. Now as you can see, I'm just going to create a stored. I've just created a stored procedure and I'm going to execute it. And before actually executing it, I will actually explain it to you. Here the create stored procedure, USP insert titles, and then the variables starts. Okay, these are the variable actually I have described in the line 1. Okay, title ID, where char, and title. All those parameters have to be passed from the outside the stored procedure, because there is no output out parameter, means it is default by it's a input parameter. Remember that thing. Only if it is the output I have to specify it that it is the output. If it is not I have not actually specified any default value here, but in the most of the cases, as it whenever you are doing in reality you would actually mostly you will have to see whether you want to specify the default value here or whether you want to say it is a null or something else. Okay, now here it checks if access selects from the public. Now what is happening is there is two tables. Okay, one is the publisher and the other one is the title. Before actually inserting in the title table, okay, because the publisher table is the parent table of the title, okay, before inserting into the titles, I will have to check whether the publisher is there into the publisher table with that pub id. Whatever the pub id I am trying to pass it, that thing should actually exist in the publisher table. Okay, now here is it how I actually select start from publisher, where pub id equals to be pub id that was passed from the up the value and begin. If exists, means if doesn't exist, don't do anything. If exists, then you go and insert it. Okay, or else it will give you error. Rest is all the SQL statement, like simple insert statement actually. Just the values are the variables, as you can see from the up, nothing more, nothing less. Or else if it doesn't exist, then it raises an error. Okay, I'll begin trace and that's it. And then I can actually go and actually see run this SQL, this stored procedure. Let's actually first compile it. Here it is. I am going to execute the stored procedure. And as you can see that a stored procedure has been actually executed. Okay, now let's actually I will go and execute this stored procedure. Now this is how I execute it. I say begin try execute the stored procedure. These are the parameter value actually I have supplied. Here actually I have given a value of 8888 that doesn't exist in the parent actually table, and it will actually create, that's the publisher, it will create an error by default because this value doesn't exist in the publisher. And I can try. Now I can catch an error. I can say print error occurred on the calling of the insert title, and then I can show the message whatever it is, convert it to the varchar. Okay, and if the error is 50,000, this is a custom error, and it will actually run. And I will just show it to you that it will actually throw up an error because that value does not exist in the publisher table. Okay, it says the publisher ID is not valid. This is a custom error. Okay, because we have defined this error. Okay, very simple. Okay, I'll just end it here, and maybe I will take up more stored procedure in the next video.